But
on what to do.
that's to some extent the same thing we're all facing, right? Like you said, EVs are not affordable for most people. My brother-in-law, he put a deposit on an F-150 Lightning, and they came calling. They're like, "Oh, we're ready to move forward if you want to." And he just wanted like the basic F-150 Lightning, and it was originally like 65 grand. And they said, "Oh, it's actually 98,000." He's like, "I can't deal with that. Like, how are we ever supposed to make this transition?" So, I hear what you're saying. I think it applies to a lot of us as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a good point, and I think that's the kind of inherent logic. So, why we've structured the carbon price to include a rebate. So, yes, you pay the fuel charge when you fill up your car, but at the end of the year, or now quarterly, you do get a payment for what the sort of average fuel price charge is, and that should help you offset the additional cost of the carbon price on consumers. And the best way, I think, for people to conceptualize this is, if I buy the EV, now the Lightning is an extreme example, I think. Like, there are more affordable EVs available.
Yeah.
Or you can switch to a plug-in hybrid and
Right.
cut your gas bill 60% or something. That's still a good outcome in the transition. If you think about this idea that, okay, I'm switching to a plug-in hybrid or an electric vehicle, I'm not paying the fuel charge and I'm still getting the money from the fuel charge rebate, well, that's helping kind of shift your thinking on the investment. Because if you don't do any action, then yeah, you get the rebate, the average rebate, and that probably offsets a large part of your carbon costs. But if you do the abatement, then you don't pay the fuel charge and you still get the rebate.
Yeah.
So that's the elegance of the carbon pricing regime we've put in place in Canada. Now, there is debate, and the IMF just put out a modeling result that shows that there are some benefits to taking away the rebate and repurposing the funding to this sort of fee-based structure, which is, instead of just giving everyone back a lump sum transfer, you give them back a targeted transfer. So you add additional EV subsidies. So if you want the rebate and to avoid the carbon tax, you have to buy the EV. Now that's, and the government is making the EV more affordable. So there's some intuitive logic to that. There's some interesting results about how that impacts, inflation and investment in the economy and consumption spending. And there are some aspects of it that are beneficial, and other aspects where it, maybe kind of makes some trade-offs. What I think is critical, though, is that the path of the carbon price is low but rising, to send this sort of signal, like, you maybe don't need to buy an EV right now, but your next car should be an EV.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have the money to buy a heat pump for your home, but if you have an extra $2,000-3,000 lying around, maybe you replace a couple of your windows to be more energy efficient. And you can kind of take this gradual, phased-in approach where people are cutting their carbon costs over time, and we're doing this gradual emissions reduction. We don't need everyone to go straight for the net zero option right away, especially as ability to pay differs across the economy.
Yeah, and that's what also industry wants, right? Is that level of certainty. As much as I'm sure those higher emitting industries would probably prefer no price on carbon, but at the end of the day, to have that level of certainty and know that there's predictable pricing in place, like, I would absolutely imagine that that's going to help how they project and think about their future investments.
Well, and I think there's a perhaps overlooked aspect to the carbon price too, which is, by being a carbon pricing leader globally, Canada can encourage industry to think forward 10 years and say, what's the business opportunity in 2030 rather than today? And if the whole globe is serious about tackling climate change, there's a real business opportunity in being the producer of the clean technology that I've talked about, or the provider of the hydrogen, or the undisputed global leader in solar panel technology. And we're seeing that play out. I mean, China is the leader in solar panels, and they have a big economic industry out of that, which everyone is going to rely on to decarbonize their economies. So what's the next solar panel? And carbon pricing sets out the incentives to develop those business models, because doing everything the old way, doing everything the fossil fuel intensive way,
It's expensive.
is becoming less compelling.
Yeah.